When a famous Chinese diver, Ting, embarked on an attempt to set a depth record in 2023, he disappeared into the depths of what is known as the underwater Everest for almost 40 hours. At that time, he didn't know that this perilous adventure would be his final dive. This is the true tragedy of Ting at China's underwater Everest. Cave divers are always exposed to high levels of life and death risks. With experience, they become acutely aware of the ever-present dangers and learn to manage various elements. In October 2023, a diver who wasn't just skilled, but also a local legend in Guangxi and beyond was preparing to set a new depth record. He wasn't merely a proficient diver, his reputation extended well beyond local fame. His name was Ting. The events of that day were unpredictable, not only because Ting was an experienced coach in recreational scuba diving, free diving, and technical diving, but also because he led a team of divers on rescue missions of all kinds in the past. To describe him as merely competent would be an understatement. Ting lived for adventure, relentlessly pursuing deeper challenges without fear. Sadly, his last challenge would indeed be his final dive, which was a risk he always understood before he dove. He would tell people that unexpected goodbyes and ruthless departures were common things in the world, and doing things like deep dives helped punctuate that. The irony of all this was that his skills were on display for everyone to see and find. For example, while his accident happened in October of 2023, in April of that same year, he was breaking records of a personal nature. Specifically, he went into the deepest cave within the continent of Asia, Jiundun Cave, and went 277 meters into it without issue. He was just 9 meters short of breaking the all-time record, but you could bet he was going to try and make it even deeper the next time. And that's what led to his tragic incident within underwater Everest. He wasn't trying to set another world record, he was merely training himself for another attempt at the record. One thing that cannot be overstated was his familiarity within the Guangxi area. He was one of the people that China called to help rescue people who were trapped in that area, and was one of several divers that were brought in to help do salvage operations like recovering boats. He knew the times of day when the shores would be clear, and it would be a perfect time for diving, just like on October 7th, 2023. When night had fallen, he and his support team went out to the Jiudun Skylight, a special place where the underground river can be seen from the surface, and it's from there that Ting dove for the last time. The plan, according to those in the support team, was that he was to go down and do several things to help ensure that he was prepared for his next world record attempt in several days' time. One of his tasks involved attaching a safety rope to various points within the underground and underwater structure, providing him something to hold on to in case of emergency. Ting himself was asked about these ropes in a past documentary and noted that they were a lifeline when you're trying to get back to the surface. For Ting, his putting in his own safety line was paramount, but it was more nuanced than that. At this point in time, the Jiudun Cave had evolved into a sanctuary for hundreds of divers, attracting individuals from various diving backgrounds. As a result, those divers kept putting in their own ropes and other safety lines. This meant that they kept getting tangled up, cut, or weren't in the proper positions. Ting noted to his team that he was going down there to clean up the place so that he could have his ropes ready for his world record attempt. The other mission for the dive was one of communication. He was going to put a special optical cable deep into the water so that divers that came after him would be able to communicate with surface teams more easily. The irony of this statement isn't lost on people, now given the events that would soon happen. Ting wasn't alone that day, as he had his student and fellow diver Ma Lei with him underwater. He wasn't there to go as deep as him, but to help him complete tasks to ensure the dive was a success, including raising the water level to ensure his return to the surface. They planned everything out so that the dive could be done in 3 hours. Ting even noted that he would use a flashlight underwater to signal that he was ready to surface. But soon, the time came, and no signal was seen by those above or below the water. Ma Lei and Ting's brother Lao were soon both on the surface, waiting for any sign of Ting. Ma Lei soon went back into the water to try and find Ting, and it was there that he saw something. a set of equipment that Ting had brought down with him to help keep his oxygen supply high. It was located on a stone wall, a supply pack, if you will, to ensure he had plenty to get back up to the surface. He knew that if it was there, Ting didn't come back up from the depths of the cave. He left it there on the small chance he was alive and would need it for his safe return. Ma Lei continued to search until his physical strength and equipment were failing him. By the time he returned to the surface, it had been many hours after Han Ting's initial dive. There was no sign of him, and hope was slim. With that, the police were brought in and multiple dive teams were formed to try and find Han Ting. There was a chance he was alive due to the levels of equipment he brought to do his dive. But with each hour that passed, the odds of survival dropped. As the dawn of the 8th arrived, Ma and Lao decided to return to the depths to see if they could find any trace of Han. They went to the very edge of Ma's abilities, which was 70 meters down, but didn't see any trace of him physically. However, what they did see were the various safety ropes he had installed and cleaned to ensure his rise back to the top. In fact, they both noted that it was impeccable work, so nothing had gone wrong in that part of the mission, yet he was missing. Some felt there was one hope within the recesses of the underwater Everest, a cave that had a pocket of air that Han could have hidden within. The truth is that the waters of our world are deep, twisting, and have surprises that no one can predict until they get down there. That's why many archaeological finds have been discovered in places like underwater caves and gaps where the various land masses are able to poke out above the water just enough to give things like an oasis to lucky divers, or a place where people can catch their breath. For a diver, if their oxygen tank is low and they know they can't make it to the surface, they'll likely try and find these areas and simply hope to make it long enough for a rescue to come. For those who knew Han Ting, this was likely their hope as the hours went on and local authorities were brought in to try and find him. The problem is that while many of the human divers they brought in were experienced, it was Han Ting himself who knew the Jiudun cave the best. He even made a sketch of it that circulated after the tragic incident. He was also the one who could have gone into it the deepest, so the best person to find Han Ting was Han Ting. Since humans weren't going to be able to find Han Ting, Ma and Lao asked for some underwater dive robots to be brought in and brave the cave to try and find him. Sure enough, after about an hour of searching, Han Ting was found 120 meters below the water and lying against a slope of rocks. He was gone, but what happened to him? No one knows, not even now. When they looked at his body, equipment, and dive suit, he had no clear signs of damage, struggle, or issues. He was also in a pose that was deemed typical for divers, so that didn't raise any red flags either. When Ma and Lao saw Han's body via the robot, their grief was both visible and understandable. Their friend, family member, mentor, and hero was gone, and it wasn't clear as to why. Just as tragic, it was to be his 47th birthday, and they had gotten him a cake with a phrase he told his dive team often: "Go where you want to go." It was after this point that they used the smart robot to get the body out of the water. This was the true tragedy of Han Ting. May his soul rest in peace.